Have you ever found yourself thinking,
Nothing is real.
maybe I'm living in a simulation? What is the meaning of life anyway? Now, for most of us, these might be just fleeting thoughts that we have and then we go about our day. But for people experiencing existential OCD or EOCD, those thoughts aren't just fleeting philosophical musings. Instead, you get stuck in a painful loop of doubt, mental checking, anxiety, and avoidance, trying to find the answer to these philosophical questions. And this painful loop of doubt can have a massively detrimental impact on your life. I'm Dr. Liz White, a consultant clinical psychologist and OCD and anxiety specialist. In this video, I'm going to explain what existential OCD is, and I'm going to talk you through a few strategies that might help. Don't forget to like, hype, and subscribe to my channel. Existential OCD is a subtype of obsessive compulsive disorder where it focuses exclusively on the biggest philosophical questions of life. Now, curiosity about those themes is nothing new and it's completely normal. Humans have asked these questions for thousands and thousands of years. The difference with EOCD is its intensity. The thoughts are intrusive and urgent. And instead of that philosophical curiosity, it's like being trapped in mental quicksand. You feel like you can't move forward until you solve the question, until you know what the answer is. But the problem is, these are questions that don't have answers, so you go round and round in loops of doubt. And some of the examples that I hear quite often are things like, what if I'm not real? What if this is all just a simulation? What if life actually has no meaning? How do I know I'm really here? How do I know I'm really me? People with EOCD can ruminate over these types of questions for hours and hours on end. And this can lead to other difficulties like panic attacks, social anxiety. Now, like all OCD, it's not just about the obsessions. It's also about the compulsions that follow. Compulsions often look like endlessly Googling for the answers or reading philosophy or religious texts, again, to try and find the certainty or to try and find the right answer. People often get stuck in intricate arguments for and against, essentially trying to resolve that doubt that philosophical question brings. Often people will ask others for reassurance, so friends or family, do you think life has meaning, or do you know that I'm real? Avoidance is also quite a big factor, so avoiding anything that might trigger those particular doubts, like deep conversations about life or movies, social media. Another really common compulsion is mental reviewing. So somebody will review their past experiences to try and prove their existence or prove reality. They may also test reality, so doing things to test that someone really exists or that the world really exists. So often how it works is that one of these existential questions or doubts will pop up that can spark intense fear or anxiety, and then the person will try and neutralize it by checking or the mental reviewing or trying to resolve it, trying to find the answer. This may offer temporary relief. And when I say temporary, it could literally be for a couple of minutes, but then the doubt sneaks in again, often with like a new angle or a completely new question. The important thing to note here is that logic or philosophical arguments or more reasoning often appears to kind of fix the doubt. But with existential OCD, logic itself can become the compulsive tool. You chase thought after thought, expecting or chasing that final answer, but the doubt is never satisfied. Now, the other thing to highlight here is that existential OCD can come along with feelings of detachment or feeling like things are unreal. So what I'm talking about here is derealization and depersonalization. And as you can imagine, when this is coupled with the existential OCD fears and worries and questions, it can make the experience a whole lot worse for the person. But that is something that's really common and something that I see quite a lot. So what helps? Let's take a look. Now, before I explain about treatments for existential OCD, if you're currently really struggling with this, if there's one thing that you take away from this video, let it be this. You don't need an answer to that question in your mind. Those questions that keep coming up. That is at the core of existential OCD because it pulls you into this idea that you have to know the answer. Uncertainty about life's big questions is okay. And you can have these distressing thoughts without needing to do anything about them. And that is where you take your power back with existential OCD. So let's have a think about treatments. So the gold standard for all OCD subtypes is exposure and response prevention, or ERP. And in existential OCD, that might mean things like practicing tolerating uncertainty, even when there is doubt and uncertainty about those deep philosophical questions. So sitting with the thought, maybe life has no meaning, without rushing to counter it or get the answer. It might also mean resisting the urge to seek reassurance or resisting the urge to do lots of research and Google. And it's much more about learning to shift your focus to the present moment, to the here and now, even with doubt in the background. And this is where mindfulness and acceptance-based approaches like acceptance and commitment therapy can really help. And that's not to make these thoughts go away, but rather to change your relationship with them. So let's talk about some practical coping tools that might help. Now, firstly, it's important to say that if you are struggling with existential doubts, worries, and you're very caught up in the compulsions and it's really taking over your life, it's making it hard to work or to study, or it's impacting on your relationships, or it's all you can think about, it's really important to get professional help. So alongside that, here are a few strategies that people often find helpful. Firstly, grounding or sensory work. So when the doubt pulls you into your head, it's important to try and get back into your body. Shift your focus to the present, to your five senses. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel on your skin? So using your five senses is a really good way to get your attention back into your body. Journaling and noticing patterns can help. So I don't mean sort of brain dumping all of the thoughts and the worries and the doubts, but rather kind of taking a stepping back approach. So really noticing what your mind is doing, observing the triggers to the doubts and what rituals or compulsions follow from that, and what seems to make it worse or better. Another tip is to gently reduce reassurance seeking and doing that research and that Googling. So try and experiment with stopping or delaying those urges or those compulsions to do that, even if for a brief period. And lastly, self-compassion is so crucial here. Just acknowledging how difficult this type of OCD is, because it's so all-encompassing in your mind, and recognizing that you're not flawed for experiencing this. You didn't ask for this, and offer yourself some kindness and some understanding of that. So what are the takeaways? Existential OCD convinces you that you need certainty before you can do anything else, before you can live your life. You have to resolve these questions. You have to know the answers to these unanswerable questions. But the truth is, freedom comes from knowing that you can live alongside that uncertainty, but it takes practice, but it's possible. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that's helped. If you have any questions about anything I've said in the video, please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.